The storm raged through the Montana wilderness, its heavy rain beating against Tom Henderson's cabin windows. As a remote paramedic stationed in these woods, he was used to all kinds of weather, but something felt different about tonight. The emergency radio beside his bed crackled with static, making him look up from his medical journal. That's when he saw it, a streak of blue light cutting through the dark clouds, moving too fast to be a plane and too slow to be a shooting star. Tom watched as the object descended, trailing smoke and sparks, before disappearing behind a tree line with a distant crash that he felt more than heard. "Please don't be a plane crash," he muttered, already pulling on his heavy-duty rain gear and grabbing his well-worn medical kit. As the only paramedic within 50 miles, he couldn't ignore any potential emergency, no matter how strange it looked. Tom's truck struggled through the muddy forest road, its headlights cutting through the rain and darkness. The crash site wasn't hard to find. Broken trees marked a clear path, leading to a soft blue glow in a small clearing. As he got closer, his headlights revealed something that made him slam on the brakes. It wasn't a plane. The object was about the size of a small bus, its metallic surface smooth and curved in ways that didn't look human-made. Strange symbols glowed faintly along its side, and what looked like wings were tucked close to its body, one of them badly damaged. "Holy shit," Tom whispered, his hand shaking slightly as he reached for his flashlight. Years of emergency response training kicked in, pushing aside his disbelief. Crash meant possible injuries, and injuries meant someone needed help, human or not. He approached carefully, noting the hull was warm but not hot enough to be dangerous. A section of the craft had split open, revealing the dimly lit interior. Tom's medical training warred with every sci-fi movie he'd ever watched that said going inside was a bad idea. Then he heard it, a weak cry from within. "Help! Help me!" The voice sounded female, speaking perfect English, but with an odd musical quality that didn't seem quite human. Tom didn't hesitate any longer. He climbed through the opening, his flashlight beam revealing an interior that looked like a cross between a luxury car and a spaceship from a movie. In what appeared to be the pilot's seat, he found her. The alien looked surprisingly human-like in basic shape, but her skin had a silvery sheen, and her hair seemed to shimmer with colors that shouldn't exist. She was slumped forward, held in place by what looked like a safety harness, with several visible injuries, including a nasty gash on her forehead that leaked iridescent blue fluid. Her eyes opened as his light fell on her. They were entirely purple, with no whites or pupils, but somehow they conveyed pain and fear just like human eyes would. "Help me, human," she whispered again, her voice weak but clear. "Please, they're coming." Tom's paramedic training took over completely. "I'm going to help you," he said firmly, already assessing her injuries with practiced eyes. "I'm a medical professional. Can you tell me where it hurts most?" "You're not afraid?" she managed to ask, watching as he began to check her vital signs. "Terrified," Tom admitted with a small smile, finding what seemed to be a pulse point on her wrist. Different location than a human's, but steady rhythm. "But you're hurt, and that's more important right now. I'm Tom Henderson, by the way." "Lyra," she responded, then winced as he carefully examined the head wound. "Your species. We thought you'd be more hostile," Tom suggested, gently cleaning the wound with antiseptic wipes from his kit. "Sorry to disappoint. Now, can you move your fingers and toes, or whatever you call these?" He gestured to her hand, which had 4 fingers and what looked like 2 thumbs. Their conversation was interrupted by a distant sound that made Lyra stiffen with fear, a high-pitched whine that definitely wasn't thunder. Her purple eyes went wide with terror. "They found me," she whispered. "Please, you have to help me hide. They can't find me." Tom worked quickly, his mind racing as fast as his hands moved. The distant whine was getting closer and Lyra's terror was obvious. He finished securing a bandage around her head wound and checked her other injuries, mostly cuts and bruises, but her right leg was badly hurt. "Can you walk?" he asked, already working to free her from the safety harness. I think so," Lyra said, then gasped in pain as she tried to move her leg. "Maybe not well." "Then we do this the old-fashioned way," Tom said, positioning himself to carry her. "Put your arms around my neck. We need to get you out of here before whoever's chasing you shows up." As he lifted her, Tom was surprised by how light she was, maybe half the weight he'd expect from a human her size. Her skin felt smooth and cool to the touch, almost like polished metal, but somehow still soft. "My ship," Lyra protested weakly as he carried her toward the exit. "The data. Can't let them find it." "Is there a way to destroy it?" Lyra nodded against his shoulder. She raised one hand, and a small device on her wrist glowed with purple light. The ship's interior suddenly lit up with warning lights, and a soft voice began speaking in an alien language. "Self-destruct initiated," Lyra translated. "We have 3 minutes." Tom didn't waste time responding. He carried her through the rain to his truck, carefully placing her in the passenger seat before running around to the driver's side. As he started the engine, the night lit up behind them, not with an explosion, but with a silent flash of light that seemed to fold the ship in on itself until nothing remained but a scorched patch of ground. "That's not how explosions usually work," Tom commented as he drove away, taking a less-used logging road to avoid any followers. "Quantum collapse," Lyra explained, her voice stronger now that they were moving away from danger. "Reduces everything to base particles. No debris, no evidence." She turned her purple eyes to him, studying his face. "You're handling this remarkably well for someone from a pre-contact civilization." Tom kept his eyes on the dark road ahead, navigating carefully through the storm. "Well, panicking won't help either of us. Besides, I've watched enough sci-fi to know that if an alien asks for help, you help them. Though I have about 1,000,000 questions. I can answer some," Lyra said, adjusting herself in the seat to take pressure off her injured leg. "My people have been studying Earth for several of your centuries. We've learned all your languages, mapped your cultures. Protocol said we weren't ready for contact. Too violent, too divided, too primitive." She paused, looking at Tom with what seemed like embarrassment. "I'm starting to think we were wrong about that." "What made you crash?" Tom asked, taking a turn that would lead them deeper into the wilderness, away from any populated areas. "I was attacked," Lyra said, her voice hardening. "By others of my kind. They're called the Stalkers, and they're after something on Earth. Something they're willing to kill for. I discovered their plans," and she stopped suddenly, looking out the window. "The sounds are getting closer. They're tracking the quantum collapse signature." Tom nodded, thinking quickly. "There's an old ranger station about 20 miles from here. Hasn't been used in years, but I keep it stocked with medical supplies for emergencies. Concrete walls, underground storage, and the mountains around it mess with most types of signals. Will that work?" Lyra's expression showed surprise, then approval. Yes, that might actually work. The mineral content in these mountains does interfere with our scanning technology." "How did you know that would help?" "I didn't," Tom admitted with a slight smile. "But in my job, you learn that when something's chasing you, the more interference between you and it, the better." He pressed down on the accelerator, the truck's engine roaring as they sped through the rain. "Now, while we drive, maybe you can tell me more about these stalkers and what they want with Earth." The old ranger station appeared through the rain as a dark shape against the mountainside. Tom killed the truck's headlights for the final approach, using only the dim moonlight to guide them. His years of driving these roads paid off as he carefully parked behind the building, hidden from aerial view by thick pine trees. "We should be safe here for a while," he said, helping Lyra out of the truck. Her leg had stiffened during the drive, making it harder for her to move. "Let's get inside so I can take a better look at that leg." Inside, Tom quickly set up an emergency lantern, its soft light revealing a dusty but well-maintained interior. Basic supplies lined the shelves: medical kits, canned food, emergency blankets, and other survival gear. He helped Lyra onto a cot and began examining her leg properly. "The stalkers," he said as he worked. "You were about to tell me what they want with Earth." Lyra winced as he found a particularly tender spot on her leg. "They want you. All of you. Human beings." She saw the confusion on his face and continued. "Your species is unique in our galaxy. Your ability to adapt, to survive, to think in ways we can't predict. It's extraordinary." "That doesn't sound so bad," Tom said, carefully wrapping her injured leg. "Why not just talk to us?" "Because they don't want to talk. They'd want to harvest." Lyra's purple eyes darkened with anger. "They believe they can extract what makes humans special and use it to enhance our own species. They don't care that the process would be fatal to the subjects." Tom's hands stopped moving for a moment as he processed this. "They want to dissect us." "Yes, my people's laws forbid such things, but the stalkers operate in secret. They've already taken some humans, missing persons from remote areas. I discovered their lab, stole their research data, but they caught me before I could reach our council." A sudden noise outside made them both freeze. Tom quickly turned off the lantern, plunging them into darkness. Through the window, they saw a faint blue light passing overhead, similar to the glow from Lyra's ship, but somehow colder. "They're searching the area," Lyra whispered. "The mountains are disrupting their scanners, but they won't give up easily." Tom moved quietly to his supply shelves, gathering items with practiced efficiency. "How many are we dealing with?" "A standard hunter team. 4 stalkers. They'll be armed with mural disruptors and capture nets. Their ships have shields against your weapons." "Good thing I'm not planning to shoot at their ships then," Tom said, his voice calm as he continued gathering supplies. "You said they're like you. Similar biology." Lyra nodded in the darkness. "Yes, though they're enhanced with cybernetic combat systems. They're stronger, faster." She stopped, noticing what Tom was collecting. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that similar biology means similar vulnerabilities." He held up several items: pepper spray, a powerful flashlight, and what looked like industrial cleaning supplies. "They may have shields against bullets, but I bet they've never dealt with capsaicin or magnesium flares. Sometimes the simple stuff works best." Another ship passed overhead, closer this time. Its searchlight swept the trees around the station, but didn't penetrate the covered windows. "They're getting closer to our position," Lyra said, trying to stand. "We should run." Tom gently pushed her back onto the cot. "No, you can barely walk, and they'll catch us easily in the open. Besides," he smiled slightly in the darkness, "this station has a basement level, and I'm thinking it's time to show these stalkers why taking humans by force is a really bad idea." The confident tone in his voice made Lyra stare at him with newfound curiosity. "You have a plan." "I'm a wilderness paramedic. My whole job is dealing with emergencies using whatever I have on hand." He started gathering more supplies. "Now let me tell you exactly how we're going to outsmart your technologically superior hunters using nothing but cleaning supplies and basic medical equipment." Tom's plan had to change quickly when the first stalker blast tore through the ranger station's wall. He grabbed Lyra and dove into the basement just as the ceiling above them collapsed. Dust filled the air as they scrambled deeper into the underground storage area. "So much for setting up traps," Tom muttered, helping Lyra move faster despite her injured leg. "Time for Plan B." "What's Plan B?" Lyra asked, coughing from the dust. "Run now, improvise later." He pulled out a flashlight, but didn't turn it on yet. "These tunnels connect to an old mine shaft. Miners used it decades ago before the Park Service took over." Above them, heavy footsteps moved through the wreckage. A voice called out in an alien language, and Lyra tensed. "They're saying to capture me alive." She translated in a whisper. "But they don't care about human survivors." Tom led them deeper into the tunnels, one hand on the wall to guide them. "Good thing they won't find any survivors then." He felt Lyra's questioning look in the darkness. Can't find what isn't there. Right now, we're not running away. We're setting up an ambush. They moved as quietly as possible through the darkness. Tom knew these tunnels from previous emergency drills and every first aid cache he'd hidden down here over the years. The stalkers might have advanced technology, but he had something better: home field advantage. The first cache was right where he remembered. Tom quickly grabbed supplies: chemical light sticks, first aid items, and a few maintenance tools. He handed Lyra some light sticks. "Break these only when I say so. The chemicals inside will mess with their visual sensors, based on how you reacted to my flashlight earlier." "Clever," Lyra admitted. "Your pupils didn't adjust to light changes the same way mine did, but they'll still be able to track our heat signatures." Tom grinned in the darkness. "Not after this next part." He pulled out several emergency cooling blankets. "These reflect body heat, and this tunnel runs through an underground stream. Water temperature down here stays at about 40 degrees Fahrenheit year-round." A blast of energy sizzled past them, illuminating the tunnel in bright blue for a moment. The stalkers were getting closer. "Down." Tom pulled Lyra behind a rocky outcropping. He quickly wrapped them both in the cooling blankets and dumped the contents of a first aid kit into the stream. The current carried bandages and chemical packets downstream, spreading their heat signature across a wider area. "They're splitting up to search," Lyra whispered, hearing movement above. "Two are following the heat trail downstream, but two are still coming this way." "Perfect." Tom pulled out his last supplies: a powerful magnesium flare and a canister of pepper spray mixed with some cleaning chemicals. "Remember when you said Earth was too primitive? Sometimes primitive works better than advanced." He explained his plan quickly. Lyra's eyes widened. "That's insane," she said. "I love it." They didn't have to wait long. The tunnel lit up with the stalkers' searchlights, revealing two tall figures in sleek armor. Their helmets had multiple glowing sensors, scanning every shadow. Tom squeezed Lyra's hand. The signal. She broke all the chemical lights at once, throwing them toward the stalkers. The sudden chemical reaction made their sensors spark and fritz. In the same moment, Tom lit the magnesium flare, its intense white light overwhelming their backup visual systems. The stalkers staggered, temporarily blinded. Tom's modified pepper spray hit them next, the chemicals reacting with their sensitive breathing filters. Their advanced armor, designed to stop energy weapons and projectiles, did nothing against the simple chemical assault. "Run." Tom grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her past the incapacitated stalkers. "The mine shaft exit is just ahead, and I've got a friend with a boat waiting on the lake. Let's move before their friends come back." Behind them, alien curses echoed through the tunnel, but Tom and Lyra were already racing toward daylight and the next phase of their escape plan. The lake stretched before them like a mirror in the early morning light, but Tom and Lyra had no time to admire the view. They could hear the stalkers regrouping behind them, their angry voices echoing from the mine entrance. "Your friend with the boat," Lyra said as they hurried toward the shore, her injured legs slowing them down. "Are they trustworthy?" Tom's answer was cut off by a high-pitched whine above them. They looked up to see two stalker ships appearing through the clouds, their weapons already powering up. "Doesn't matter now," Tom said grimly. "They've cut off our escape route." He looked around quickly, spotting a small boathouse nearby. "In there. Move." They barely made it inside before energy blasts struck the ground where they'd been standing. The boathouse was old but solid, built from thick logs and stone. Inside, Tom found exactly what he'd hoped for: basic maintenance supplies and fishing equipment. "We can't stay here," Lyra said, peering through a crack in the wall. "All four stalkers are converging on our position, and their ships have us surrounded. Then we make our stand." Tom was already moving, grabbing items from the shelves. "Help me with this. If we can't run, we fight." The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Tom's paramedic bag yielded unexpected weapons. Surgical alcohol became an accelerant. Compressed bandages soaked in chemicals became smoke bombs. He turned fishing line into tripwires and mixed cleaning supplies into makeshift tear gas. "They're coming," Lyra warned, her purple eyes wide as she watched the stalkers approach. Their armor gleamed in the morning sun, weapons raised. "Good," Tom said, finishing his last preparation, "because I got a surprise for them." He pointed to the large oxygen tanks in the corner, used by deep-water fishermen. "Those ships of theirs might have shields against Earth weapons, but I bet they've never dealt with a fuel-air explosion." The first stalker kicked in the door, only to trip on fishing wire. The stumble saved its life as Tom's first trap went off. A spray of surgical alcohol and spark from emergency flares created a wall of fire between them and the door. "Primitive tricks won't save you," a mechanical voice announced as two more stalkers crashed through the windows. Their armor protected them from the flame, but they weren't ready for what came next. Tom threw his homemade smoke bombs, bandages soaked in a mixture of chemicals that filled the air with thick, caustic smoke. The stalkers' armor filters, already damaged from the earlier pepper spray attack, began to spark and malfunction. "Cover your eyes," Tom shouted to Lyra, pulling out a road flare. The magnesium flame ignited just as the smoke reached the right density, creating a blinding flash that overloaded the stalkers' visual sensors. But the aliens weren't done. Their leader pushed through the chaos, targeting systems locking onto Tom. "Enough games, human," it growled through its translator. That's when Lyra made her move. While Tom had kept them distracted, she'd rewired her damaged wrist device. She activated it now, sending out a pulse that interfered with the stalkers' cybernetic enhancements. They staggered, their coordinated attack falling into confusion. "Now, Tom," she yelled. Tom threw his last weapon, a simple glass bottle filled with boathouse chemicals. It shattered against the oxygen tanks just as a stalker's misfired energy blast hit the same spot. The resulting explosion wasn't massive, but it was perfect. The pressure wave caught the stalkers off guard, throwing them back through the windows and doors they'd entered through. "Run." Tom grabbed Lyra's hand. Through the smoke and chaos, they could see the stalker ships losing stability, their control systems affected by Lyra's pulse. "The blast gave us a chance. There's a tunnel under the boathouse that leads to the other side of the lake. We just have to." A new sound cut through the air, a different kind of engine, coming from high above. Lyra's face lit up with recognition and hope. "The peacekeepers," she breathed. "They got my distress signal. They're here." The peacekeeper ships descended from the clouds like silent silver birds, their presence immediately causing the stalker vessels to retreat. Beams of soft green light swept the area, disabling what remained of the stalkers' weapons and armor. Tom and Lyra emerged from the boathouse tunnel to find the lake shore now occupied by tall, silvery figures similar to Lyra, but wearing uniforms that seemed to shift colors in the morning light. Their leader, distinguished by markings on their uniform, approached them. "Research Officer Lyra," the leader said in perfect English, "your distress signal contains some very disturbing data. Are you all right?" "Thanks to Tom," Lyra said, gesturing to the human beside her. "He not only saved my life, but helped me protect the evidence." She held up her wrist device. "It's all here. Everything about the stalkers' secret operations on Earth." The leader turned to Tom, studying him with eyes that shimmered between purple and gold. "A human who chose to help rather than fear. Fascinating. Perhaps our assessment of your species needs significant revision." "Maybe it does," Tom said, keeping his voice steady despite his exhaustion. "But first, I'd like to know what you plan to do about these stalkers and their human experiments." The leader's expression changed in a way Tom couldn't quite read. "You know about that." "I know enough," Tom replied. "And I know that if you want any kind of peaceful contact with Earth in the future, this needs to be handled right." Lyra stepped forward, her wrist device projecting images into the air. The stalkers weren't just conducting illegal experiments. They fundamentally misunderstood what makes humans special. She looked at Tom. They thought it was just genetics, something they could extract and copy. But they were wrong. The images showed data from the stalkers' research, failed attempts to replicate human adaptability through purely biological means. They couldn't understand why their experiments failed. Lyra continued, "But I do now. It's not just human DNA that makes your species remarkable. It's this." She gestured to the destroyed boathouse, the improvised weapons, the evidence of Tom's quick thinking. "It's your creativity, your ability to take the simple and make it extraordinary, your capacity to face the unknown and adapt not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. That can't be extracted or copied. It can only be learned from." The peacekeeper leader nodded slowly. "The council will want to hear this. Along with the evidence of the stalkers' crimes, your observations could change everything about how we approach Earth." "And the humans who were taken?" Tom pressed. "The ones in their labs will be rescued immediately," the leader assured him. "We've already traced the stalkers' facility locations from the data Lyra recovered. They will face justice for their crimes, and their victims will be returned home." With no memory of what happened to them, Lyra added quickly, seeing Tom's concern, "We can do that much, at least." Tom watched as more peacekeepers led the captured stalkers to their ships. The morning sun was rising higher, making the lake waters sparkle. "So what happens now?" he asked. "You erase my memories too, and pretend none of this happened." The leader and Lyra exchanged looks. "Actually," Lyra said, a smile playing at her lips, "I have a different suggestion. One that could change everything for both our species. The Council has been debating for decades about how to eventually make contact with Earth," the leader explained. "Perhaps it's time we had a human perspective on that discussion. Someone who has already proven they can handle the unexpected with both courage and wisdom." Tom looked between them, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Are you offering me a job?" "More like a partnership," Lyra said. "Help us understand your people better. Help us do this right." She held out her hand, a very human gesture she must have learned from him. "What do you say? Ready for another adventure?" 6 months had passed since the night of the crash. Tom stood before the United Nations Security Council, Lyra at his side, as they prepared to make history. The room was packed with world leaders, all waiting with a mixture of fear and hope for what was about to happen. "Ready?" Lyra asked quietly, her purple eyes meeting his with warmth. "As ready as anyone can be for helping introduce aliens to Earth," Tom replied with a small smile. He looked down at his new uniform, a modified version of the peacekeeper's attire, adapted for human comfort, but still showing his unique position as Earth's first official interstellar representative. The Secretary General stood to make the announcement that would change human history forever. Outside, peaceful contact ships hovered over every major city on Earth, their presence impossible to hide any longer. But unlike the invasion scenarios many had feared, these ships brought knowledge, healing, and hope. Tom stepped up to the podium, Lyra beside him. 6 months ago, he began, I was just a wilderness paramedic who helped an injured stranger. Today, I'm here to tell you that we are not alone, and more importantly, that we have nothing to fear from our new allies. He went on to explain how the stalkers had been brought to justice, their victims returned safely home with no memory of their ordeals, how the Alien Council had spent months working with him and a small team of human advisors to ensure first contact would be peaceful and beneficial for both species. Humanity's greatest strength, Tom continued, isn't our technology or our physical capabilities. It's our ability to adapt, to think creatively, to face the unknown with courage and compassion. These are qualities our new friends value and wish to learn from. Lyra stepped forward then, addressing the assembly. My people once thought Earth was too primitive for contact. But through Tom's actions, we learned that true advancement isn't measured by technology alone. It's measured by the heart and spirit of a species. The presentation continued as they laid out the plans for gradual integration, sharing of medical knowledge, clean energy technology, and cultural exchange programs. But there would be no mass technological handover that might destabilize human society. Instead, there would be partnership and mutual growth. Later that evening, Tom and Lyra stood on the observation deck of the Peacekeeper mothership, looking down at Earth glowing blue and beautiful below them. "Remember when you were terrified and asking for my help?" Tom asked, watching city lights twinkle across continents. "Remember when you were shocked at seeing an alien?" Lyra countered with a laugh. "Now look at you, Earth's first interstellar diplomat. All because I followed the most basic human instinct, helping someone in need." Tom turned to face her. "Your people still don't quite understand that, do they? How humans can be both fierce and gentle, primitive and brilliant all at once. That's why they need you," Lyra said. "Both our species have so much to learn from each other. Your creativity, our technology. Your passion, our stability. Together, we could accomplish amazing things." A light flashed on Lyra's wrist device, another alien ship arriving through the solar system's edge. This one carried students, the first group of alien youth who would study human culture directly. At the same time, human students were preparing to venture into space for the first time, ready to learn among the stars. "You know," Tom said, watching the ship approach Earth, "when you crashed in those woods, you said, 'Help me, human.' Never thought it would lead to helping all of humanity take its first real step into the galaxy." Lyra smiled, her purple eyes reflecting Earth's glow. "Maybe that's the real lesson here. Sometimes the biggest changes in history start with the smallest acts of kindness." Below them, Earth continued to turn, its people awakening to a new era, one where humanity's greatest strengths would help guide them to the stars, not through conquest or fear, but through understanding and hope.